right, we have Chuck Todd still with us, Ariana Huffington, Mike Barnacle, and Willie Joe.
And of course, live from Washington, we've got Republican Governor of Minnesota, Tim Pawlenty. Governor, thanks so much for being with us. A lot to talk about, but let's go first to New York 23. You bucked the Republican establishment in Washington, D.C., the NRCC, the RNC, every other organization in Washington that has an R and a C in it. Others didn't. Why did you decide to go for the non-Republican candidate?
Well, within the Republican Party, there's a range of issue positions and philosophies we can all hold, but you got to stay generally within the guardrails. Didi Skazafova's positions went through the guardrails and over the cliff. She was described by the New York Post as a profligate taxer and spender. She was endorsed by an Acorn-related party.
Well, what were the key issues for you, Governor? What were the key issues?
She raised income taxes. She supported card checks. She supported the stimulus bill. She supported, on the state level, bank bailouts.
Okay, if that's the case, why did Newt Gingrich, a guy who's mentioned as one of your opponents in 2012, go along with her? Why would Newt support somebody that supported higher taxes and the Obama stimulus plan and card? I don't understand. Educate me.
Well, I can't speak for Newt. I think he's done a lot for the party and a lot for the nation. He's a friend, and I respect him a great deal. But I think here he was just trying to be a loyal party person.
Okay,
but
so
the party made a mistake here. The party made a mistake.
Pete Sessions, I like Pete Sessions. I served with Pete Sessions. How could Pete Sessions help this woman, give her $1 million and divert those funds from, say, a California race that Republicans could have won?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Pete Sessions or others, but it's just clear she didn't meet even the minimum standard for a Republican. We're not talking about, far right or far left. There's at least a minimum standard you have to be a Republican-endorsed candidate. She clearly didn't meet that, and the folks who endorsed her kicked it in the dugout.
Tim, let me ask you about Governor. Let me ask you a couple other names here. We hear Eric Cantor, future of the Republican Party. This guy's the conservative. He was for the woman that supported card check, that supported the stimulus package, that supported all of those taxes in New York. I don't understand. John Boehner, the same thing. This is my point. There are a lot of conservatives around America this morning saying, why should we give any money to the Republican Party in Washington, D.C.? They just don't represent our values, and they haven't for a decade.
I think what happened here, Joe, is you had a small number of people in upstate New York using a system. I think it was 9 or 10 people who made the endorsement decision. They made a mistake. The rest of the party fell into line because they wanted to be loyal. But the fact of the matter is Didi Skazafova didn't represent even the minimum threshold for Republican endorsement. And that's why I and others said we're not going to support her.
Hey, let's go to Chuck Todd. He's in Washington. Chuck.
Governor, what is the minimum standard for being a Republican?
I think
give me the define moderate Republican, define minimum standard.
Well, it would include this. You can't be for tax increases repeatedly. You can't be for card check. You can't get endorsed by Acorn. You can't support the stimulus bill. You can't be for bank bailouts. That would be a starting point, Chuck. But if you're for all those things, you're probably not a Republican.
But what is, give me a definition, give me a couple of guys in the party that you say, you know what, these are moderate Republicans that we've got to keep in the party. You may be leader of the Republican Party someday. We've got to keep these moderate Republicans in the Big Tent to be a majority of party again. Give me a couple examples.
Well, there's a lot of examples. In Minnesota, I'm a conservative. I ran in a state it's pretty liberal. I won by focusing on bread and butter issues like taxes and education reform and a few others. But we just had a new congressman elected in the 3rd District, which was a swing district, named Eric Paulson. He's not well known nationally, but he's going to be a rising star in the party. He won overwhelmingly in a tough year in a swing district as a mainstream conservative Republican. He was preceded by Jim Ramstad, who many of you will remember, very much a moderate Republican. He was accepted by the Republican Party, even though we didn't agree with him on everything. So there's a range of behavior and issue positions you can take. You just can't be, so far out of the mainstream that it becomes a joke.
Well, Governor, let me give you a couple other names. I mean, I think you would agree with me. Mike Bloomberg, a Republican who's going to win in New York City. He doesn't share your views, but if Republicans want to win in New York City, you're going to have a guy like Mike Bloomberg. In Maine, do you agree with me that Republicans need Olympia Snow in Maine. Republicans need Susan Collins in Maine. Those are the type of Republicans that used to win in New England and can win in New England again. Do you agree with me on that point?
Well, you can be a Republican and deviate or not agree with everything, but you can't disagree with the Republicans on many things or most things. That was Dee Dee Skazafova's fault.
Okay, so Olympia Snowe, though, you want her in the big tent, right?
Well, if Olympia Snowe disagrees with us on one or two things, there's room for her, of course. But if she disagrees with everything,
do you want
that's
Olympia
a problem.
Snowe in the Big Tent?
We want Olympia Snowe in the Big Tent, but she can't say she's a Republican and then vote against the Republican position much of the time. And she's somebody who has got into the middle of the health care debate in a way that makes Republicans mad. They may accept that, but they're not going to accept her deviating on many other things.
So she can't do another.
Therein lies the trouble here.
Governor, this way of talking, deviating, this imposition of some kind of ideological purity test, aren't you concerned about how this is going to restrict your party and make it very hard to be a majority party?
Not if we stay focused, Ariana, on the bread and butter issues. I don't think if you go to South St. Paul, Minnesota, where I grew up, a meatpacking town, when I grew up, I said to my brothers and sisters who are all union members, do you want your taxes increased? No, they didn't. They thought we were taxed enough. Do you want school accountability or just more money plowed in? No, we like the accountability. How about health care? You want the government taking it over? No, we don't like that. Let's have ourselves and our doctor make those decisions. The point is, these are not wild-eyed, crazy ideas. Dee Dee Skazafova embraced ACORN. She embraced tax increases. She embraced taking away the right to vote in private in the workplace. She embraced the stimulus. She embraced bank bailouts. Why in the world is it a crazy notion for Republicans to say we're not supporting her? It seems like a very rational position in light of her record.
Can I, not to belabor a point, but can I swing back around to Olympia Snowe again for 1 second, Governor?
Sure.
Okay, she has been voting, God, she's been in Congress for over a decade now, I think close to 20 years, and Olympia has a long voting record. I'm going to ask you, forget about the future, just right now, you've got to make a choice based on her voting record over the past 20 years and where she is right now. Do you want Olympia Snowe in your Republican Party?
There is a process in her state that is broad-based that endorses her, and the Republicans in that state say, we want her to be our candidate. I think the downfall in New York 23, it was 9 or so people who made the decision. It was a cloistered little group. It wasn't an open and transparent process.
Are you glad that Olympia Snowe is a Republican?
Well, the people
are you?
of Maine
I'm asking you because we're talking about this litmus test. Are you glad that are you like me, and I'll just say it, I'll let the conservative blogs kill me today. Are you glad that Olympia Snowe is a Republican in Maine instead of a Democrat in Maine?
Well, I'd much rather have a Republican than a Democrat in Maine, that's for sure.
Are you glad Olympia Snowe is in your party?
Well, I think Olympia Snowe is somebody who's more liberal than most Republicans would like, but she is better than having a Democrat represent Maine.
That's a yes. I think that's a yes.
Was that a yes, Governor?
Well, look, if the people of Maine have an open process, they selected her. Wow. It's different.
It just doesn't seem like a yes when you say that.
You know what's interesting about your answers or your non-answers, Governor, with all due respect, is that there are 2 senators in Maine, 2 Republicans, Susan Collins and Olympia Snowe, and it sounds to me as if your definition of a Republican is that you being the governor of Minnesota, you're willing to go to Maine and to try and tell Republicans in Maine what litmus test they should adhere to in terms of sending either one of those 2 women back to the Senate.
No, and I do think if you look at the senators, whether it's Olympia Snowe or others who are moderate, they come through a process. There is a range of behavior and issue positions we can accept and celebrate in the party, and there's room for all of that. But you can't be so far out of that range that you become Dee Dee Skazafova.
All right, hey, Governor, let me ask you this question. If Republicans win today in New Jersey, in New York 23, conservative in New York 23, the Republicans already lost up there, thank God, and in Virginia, do you think that ends the public option and the more progressive versions of health care reform? Do you think that freezes moderate Democrats and blue dogs?
I think it's definitely going to send a shot across the bow of the Obama administration and the Democratic-controlled Congress. You'll get more nervousness as a result of that. But the bottom line, this isn't about just Republicans. It's about independents realizing that this administration, this Congress are putting the accelerator on the path towards bankruptcy for the country. They don't like the federalization of everything, and they're reacting to that.
Hey, Governor, congratulations on New York 23. I was very excited to see you jump out there. Of course, that didn't make this interview any easier today, but that's what we do. We appreciate you. We appreciate you coming, and it did take you courage to jump out there and stand up to a bloated Republican establishment in Washington, D.C. that was wildly out of touch.
Governor Pawlenty, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Coming up, unprecedented.